You're listening to the Accomplished Podcast with Gaylan Hendricks. Join Gaylan in the real, raw, and remarkable stories of her guests as she uncovers their inspirations, their failures, and their biggest accomplishments. We're so happy that you're here today. Now let's dive into today's conversation.
So Mioshi, I want to thank you and Chris for being here today. This has been a long time coming. For a lot of you, this was going to be my first guest, but it kind of got jam-packed in my world, and so I went first. But I've been waiting for this couple for a long time, and the biggest reason is I've admired them afar, not from what they do professionally or business, because for a long time I didn't even know what they did, but it's the way they love family. And they have a blended family, which I absolutely love about them. But what you need to know about both of these people is that they are both superstars. They are. And it's so crazy that we're sitting here today. It's just days like this when you look up and you go, gosh, I can't believe God put me here one more time, blessing me. I know I just feel like it's going to run out one day. But, he keeps doing it. But Chris Johnston has a super background, Super Bowl winner. But I see you, and I see probably one of the best husbands. I love how you treat this woman, but I also love how y'all are just bold about it. Like when y'all get irritated at each other. No. That's real, y'all. But has played football since 2000 and when? I have some proof down here. 2003 to Green Bay, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And part of the University of Louisville football team.
Yes, ma'am.
Beat the Brigham Young Cougars, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so the founder of our company now is Steve Young. And oh my gosh, founder may not be the title. He may be chairman, but big Brigham Young guy.
Okay.
So I don't know what he's going to think about this one that I'm doing. But he's the great-great-grandson of Brigham Young. Okay. I found that out today when I was researching it. And I know everybody's going to go, we've told you that 100 times, Gaylan. But you know what? I listen to things that make me money. That doesn't really make me money, but it helps when I'm talking to you about you. So I found that out today. But went to Green Bay in 2003, St. Louis Rams in 2005, Kansas City Chiefs in 2006, Oakland Raiders 2007 to 12. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then Baltimore Ravens went on a wing of a prayer.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's the story that I read today, that I literally was dealing with the refrigerator in my house, y'all. That's another story for another day. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all's faith is crazy awesome. And I loved when you said, I think I'm going out, but if I get this one more chance, I should take it. So I want to kind of lead into the questions right there, where we ask everybody the one right off the bat. Who inspired you first in your life in anything and made you want to be the man you are today?
I was reading this question this morning. I would first say my mom. When I was growing up, my dad wasn't a part of my life. So my mom was my dad and my mom. And just to see her struggle, move my two sisters to my grandmother and then keep me, because it was like easier to raise a boy, moving around compared to a girl. I remember her, sleeping in my back of my uncle's truck and just stuff like that. And I knew at that point in time that I had to do something different as a young man. And not knowing what you want to be, how you want to be. As I grew up, in the 6th, 7th grade, in English, I remember like yesterday, we was in English class and the teacher had that one-on-one open discussion, like who, if you could be anything in life, what you want to be. Went through the whole room, got to me. And I said, I want to be a professional football player. And she said, well, that's only 1 in a million people can do that. So you might want to find something else to do. And at that time, I was already a trouble kid. Mm-hmm. Get kicked out of class, get put in the ISS and stuff like that. So I said, well, I'm going to be that one kid, make the class crack up, laugh. She keep me out of class. So now
She had no idea. You
so
were
now
also a comedian.
Even go back to my school now, and I speak to my high school. I tell the same story, and the teachers that was there through my journey, that not teaching now, but some do still teach. They knew exactly what I was talking about, so they can come, put a stamp on it and say he did say that, and it ended up turning that way. But then when I was a senior, the other person that made me be the man that you see today is my daughter. I was a father at a senior high school, and the way I was going in life, it was only two things that a person could tell you in these texts about Chris Johnson would be either he'd be dead by 21 or he'd be in prison by 21. And when my daughter was born, my senior year, out of my mom and my daughter, I said those was two women in my life at that time that I never could ever see me behind bars, or especially lowering me in the ground. So I changed right then and there.
And you know what? I love that story. I read a quote that Mioshi quoted you on that I absolutely loved. And it said, "I'll never do anything physical or embarrassing to hurt my mom or my daughter. And I want my mom to look back and say she raised a man." Well, she did. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I absolutely love that story. And I've seen Chrissy turn into this just brilliant young woman. And I've always said, we've all been in that situation you were been in. I wasn't a senior in high school. I was told I couldn't have children. And my baby just came out of left field. But you know what? I believe every baby comes from God, and he sends it for a reason. And he sent that baby to save your life. And your mama got to look back and see what you did. And I think that's also crazy. So who would you say is your best inspiration now?
My family.
Yeah. That is why I love this family, y'all.
It's crazy because
good.
My family wasn't as close as Mioshi family is. And I just was telling her this the other day. It was me, my mom, my two sisters. Pretty much that was family. But we had uncles and nephews and cousins, but we just wasn't close like that. And meeting Mioshi in 2003, I always like, why you always want to go down there? Why you want to be around family? And, 2020 hit, COVID hit, we're like, damn, we really need, like, this is, before COVID, I felt like the world was just in the gust wind. We went to New York to do our renewal and our wedding renewal, and I was just sitting in Times, in what was that park called?
Central Park, and just looking, people just going. Like,
ain't nobody even talking, slowing down, holding hand, tying shoes. Like, it was just like a fast forward video.
Yeah.
And when 2020 hit, it was like you actually start seeing family go to the park, picnics, and people going back to
old school,
sitting down, Sunday evening dinner. And I'm like, now I'm getting what my wife been trying to get for the last 13 years. Mm-hmm. And then I lost my first sister in 2011, 11. And then my last sister last year. So when I'm being the only child of my mom now, and then seeing my wife with her mom and her sibling, like, I should have been the opposite way. Instead of letting time go by, you should engulf the time, because you never know the next minute you might not able to pick up that phone and make that phone call. And now it's like, who I look up to now, like I said, every time I get an opportunity to do something with my family, it's like, you got to do it, even though I'm like, I don't feel like it. Now I got to, because you never know, and that's the way I am now.
I love that. And, the faith thing, everybody that watches this and knows me knows I have this rule ever since Dan and I went through this really hard time and God saved us. I promised that very day on my knees, and I was at Trinity Park, that I would speak his name every day, somehow, some way. And I do that. People that work with me know that happens every day. And one of the things that I got reminded of about 5 years ago when I was being really impatient about something in our business, they were like, well, remember Saul? He wasn't this guy that Paul is now.
Right.
And, he had to go through that valley to be able to rise above to see how great a life he really had. And they were like, and don't forget, he had to wait 13 years to get his church. And I said, what? You mean he gave all that up and had to wait 13 years?
Yeah.
Well, 5 is not that bad. Maybe I can get through 5. And so I think that those trials and tribulations are just part of who we are.
Right.
And so, Mioshi, when you hear that, right there, let's go back.
Okay.
Who inspired you first and why?
I would definitely say my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have always been just those people to me.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, of course, you think it's mom and dad. You see them get up. You see them go to work. You see them, buy you things and take you places. It's like, it's mom and dad. But it clicked to me early on that everybody doesn't have this kind of mom and dad.
Isn't that hard?
Yeah.
It's really hard when you see your friends. And on the outside, it's like Facebook nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was growing up, we didn't have Facebook.
Right.
I know y'all don't think that Facebook never existed in this world, but it for real did. Because I have a lot of millennials that follow me. And
I'm glad it did.
Oh, I know. I am too. And, one of the things that I think is so weird is, you look at yourself different because you look at yourself through your friend's eyes.
Right.
And so I didn't even know I was poor until I was a junior in high school. And I wanted to go get a prom dress because I got invited by a senior that year. And I was like, going to my dad and I said, hey, I need a prom dress. Do you think you can pull out one of those credit cards and go get me one? He goes, there's not even credit left on those cards. And I said, that's okay, I'll work. I'll go find something. So I bought my dress, and then one of my friends was like, doesn't that make you mad that your mom or dad couldn't even get you a prom dress? You're not supposed to buy that stuff. And I remember thinking, you know what? Maybe I am supposed to buy the prom dress.
Mm-hmm.
They feed me. They got a roof over my head. And I never felt poor.
Right.
My whole entire life. But I hung out with people of all walks of life. I hung out with what we called back then the thugs, the grits, the popular people. And, we had a football player at the school I changed because my parents thought it was a good idea to just really run me through the ringer. So I had to change schools in 7th grade after having gone to school with the same people all my life because I grew up in Kennedale.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved to Lubbock. I made all new friends. This is cool.
Okay.
Maybe this is what I was supposed to do. Then when I become a junior, oh no, we need to move Gaylan again. Well, back then it was the end of the world, right? But that is what's made me the person I am today because when you can go through some of those kids' ridicule, so when I get invited by the quarterback of the football team and I'm the new kid, you can imagine the rumors that are going around.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling my dad some of the stuff I'd heard, and he goes, okay, but what is true? Don't worry about those fools.
Right. What is true?
They are not going to mean anything to you in 5 years. They don't care about you. Well, the other day, I was telling this group of girls about my friends. And I'm so lucky because I have friends that I've had since I was 18 months old, friends since I was in 1st grade. And, my dad always used to say the best friends in your family are going to be your family.
Mm-hmm.
They're people you can shake hands with. You're going to have 5. And I heard a guy say the other day, you're going to have 5 confidants.
Mm-hmm.
I have 10. So I say I hug more than I shake hands. So I get 10. But I think that Mioshi is what has made you. These are some adjectives that I read about you, which I believe all of them. For me, she's incredibly fun and a visionary. I don't know, and I say this all the time, I don't know anybody that works as hard as you do. You are doing something different every day. I mean, you must never get bored with what you do. But this is what I heard. Philanthropist, college graduate 2013. When did you graduate high school?
1999.
1999.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated college in 13. That's a lesson for some of you guys out there. You'll never have work-life balance, but you got to have work-life harmony.
Right.
And the next quote is, she's a super mom, great decorator, woman of faith, and by this man right here, absolute best wife. We talked about the vow renewal thing. I remember Mioshi talking about this thing she was putting together, because I think that was the year you were starting the decorator thing. And I thought she was going to do something simple like me. This is why I didn't have a wedding to begin with, because weddings freak me out. So I ended up marrying the perfect person. I said, I'm going to call you one day. I want to go get the license. I want to get married the next day. I want to be done. Because I don't do well with it.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh. They could have been on the cover of Vogue magazine. I'm telling y'all, I got pictures we're going to post when we launch this. Y'all look so good. But watching Chrissy be your woman, your lady, and how she came into his life, and how she came into your life, and how y'all made this like mother-daughter relationship, but also you're such a mentor to her. I mean, how does that make you feel when you hear people call you all these things? Which she was also, okay, this was something else I thought was weird when I was researching. You put Mioshi Johnston in, it says Mioshi Johnston's -NFL. It's like, you're like the NFL. And I'm like, it looks like she played there. So I had to go see if there was something I didn't know. But she was like NFL Woman of the Month. I mean, you got all this stuff going on that none of us know about because you're so modest and just a hard worker. So how does it make you feel that you've got a girl that's turned into this young lady, and she's going to be a celebrity in her own right? The stuff she's accomplished, that's what brings you to tears, right? To watch your kids do what they're doing.
Yes.
I love Brandy the nanny. That's her son, Brandon. She calls him Brandy the nanny. She markets him, y'all. It's legit. But tell me what that means to you about Chrissy, and a little bit of your relationship and what you want to be that she looks to.
It was kind of seamless to me because I come from a blended family also. Mm-hmm. My biological father passed when I was 12, and my dad is what I call my stepdad, my bonus dad, or now I call him Pawpaw, make him feel old. But my dad was already there. He was never missed a beat, and so to me, once I started dating Chris, and Chrissy was 4 when we started dating, and Brandon was 2. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, this is easy to me. And, you know, of course I had some people like, you want to date someone with a child already? You know, what does that look like? You have a child, you have this dynamic over here, and a son, and he has a daughter, and everything. And I was just like, y'all, this is going to be a cinch. It's going to be easy. I'm just going to do like Clifford and go for it. It's been a journey. Yeah. It has been, but like everything, I always say God wastes nothing. Mm-hmm. So the times when I thought I knew what I was doing, because I'm a mom, I come from a big family, like I didn't really know how to parent a girl. Mm-hmm. She taught me. She taught me a lot of patience. She taught me a lot of sass and wit. Mm-hmm. You know, she taught me how to be a good friend and not always just try to be your mom. Mm-hmm. And so this 18 years we've been together, I look at her sometimes, she'll say something and I'll look, I'm like, that sounds like it came out of my own mouth. Or she'll do something. She did the big chop the other day and she walked in and Chris goes, you know, she would have never chopped all her hair off. You know, and I'm like, she does look at me and she pays attention and sometimes take my words almost to a T accurate because she'll do something. She said, well, you said take 20 of this and do this. And I'm like, you took that literally, but it has taught me to be very cognizant of the woman that I am trying to continue to become and continue to be in myself so that she can look and say, hey, in 20 years, I can still be doing things and reinventing myself and being a good mom too.
And you know, it's so funny because when I first met you guys, I didn't know the blended family. I thought they were all your kids. You'd been together since you were like in junior high school. But it's so funny because I remember when Alito, I'd gone to a football game and Brandon was playing. I think he was a junior or sophomore at the time, and I remember him running over to Chris, and I thought, because then I knew by then, and I was like, that is the most coolest thing I've ever seen, and I was like, crying over that. I wasn't even crying over the game anymore. I was like, that's so cool. And, you know, I think that's what's so great about who you guys are and what you give your kids, because I know it was hard on you. I watched you do this Brand's senior year.
Oof.
You let him go back to Longview to go to school. I can't even imagine that conversation when that came up, because we're a lot alike. We've talked about it. We're married to the same person. Hard on the outside, mush on the inside. And so to me, it's one of those things where if Sean would have come up to me and said that, I would have been like, oh no, that ain't happening. And then I would probably done what you did. But I think it's so great that you let him go do that, because you had a choice. You had a choice. But you let him go do that. And y'all, this is no lie. She would go watch him on Friday night, and she would be there for Chris's games. I don't think you ever missed a game based on what I saw. And y'all, that road, I'm not kidding, from
315 miles.
Yes. I used to drive
there and back,
because I sold a ton of annuity business in White House, Longview, Tyler, and although 20 looks good, there are a lot of crazy fools on that road. And you were driving late at night, early in the morning. What did that mean to him? Because I saw pictures, and I know pictures are worth 1,000 words, but now looking back at it, what do you think that really meant to him?
Well, he's still young. He's still 21, and he's still a boy playing football. So right now, sometimes when we have those conversations, I think he gets it, but it's not all the way there yet. Like, even now, he's talking about coming home for the weekend. He's like, I think I might wait till tomorrow. It's raining.
That's a heart crusher.
I know. And I'm like, okay. But when I was doing it, it was like, Mom, what time are you getting here?
Yes.
Like, he just always expected it. It was never a question of, is it raining? Are you tired? Do you not feel good? And Chrissy was still playing softball at that time, too. So we had 3 very active kids. Chrissy was in college. Christopher was little.
She was in Corsicana.
She was in Corsicana. Now, I remember one weekend, I literally was running off a hope and a prayer. I went to East Texas for Brand's game, came back, went to Christopher's game that morning, and it just so happened, I don't know how the coach worked it out, but the Navarro Junior College was going to get to scrimmage the Baylor softball girls. As soon as Christopher's game was over in Alito, I hiked it to Waco, and I got to see all of them, and went to sleep exhausted, tired, left it all on the field, as my husband would say. But
no, she did. She screamed from the stands.
Oh,
That's what she
screamed
did.
from the stands the whole time.
She's probably
but
hoarse.
I'm talking about heart outside of my body big, because I'm like, I got to be there for all of my babies.
That's a big deal to mamas.
It is.
So when you're a guy and you see Brand, what do you think he really thinks on the inside about his mama?
Oh, by far that shit go beyond, because to the dads, I mean, me and his dad had this conversation, like, we're harder on Brand and Christopher just because men, we got to have a thick skin, like some type of thick shell. You can't, and nothing against women. I said this on our 707 the other day. I said, women ain't, I said, well, let me rephrase this. Women ain't, God don't want, like I'm just bashing that women, but it's just like, you do not want to see a man in this day and time wearing emotions on the sleeve.
Yes.
You see a lot of trouble like that. You see a lot of people road rage. You see a lot of people doing, shootings. Like I said, once again, it's nothing against a woman, but the last couple of shootings, like massive shooting, the boy has been raised by a woman. If you go and do the research, and that's why I'm like, don't know what go but I was raised by a woman. So you see a different side. So it's like, Brand gets that no matter what, it could be 5 o'clock in the morning, toughest situation. I might not call Pop, I'm gonna call my mom first.
Yeah.
But instead of saying, you know what, I'm gonna just get yelled at by Pop and not worry about my mom, she'll get that, you know, you shouldn't did woo woo woo, but then turn back around and she gonna go do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it first. I'm gonna give you what you shouldn't have done first, and then I say, you know what, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Because like I told you the other day, there's no way none of my kids, or even the boys that I raised for as football boys out here, I tell them all the time, it could be the latest part of the night, the early part of the morning. You can call me anytime you want to. My phone is always on. Because I didn't have that person to call when I got in trouble. And that's why a lot of things that I did in high school and as a young man, I changed as a father, because now I want to give that option to them kids.
Yes.
Because that'll save you a lot of jail time and a lot of headaches going through with your mom.
That's right. And you know, we are married to the same man. Because my husband, I always tell him, you broke the chain. You know, look, you had to live a lot of that. You broke that with Sean. You changed that. Sean has seen a good dad, a good husband, a good person. Mm-hmm. And now Sean is Dan. Right. Sean is a good dad, and they know Sean too. And I think that is where you really look back and you go, okay, career's important, mm-hmm. but this is my legacy. Right. And so that brings me to, who inspires you now?
Definitely my family.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what
Seeing
you got.
how hard Chris worked all those years. When you were reading off those years and those things, I'm like, whoo, that seemed like a different lifetime. Like, we did that? Was there for every move and it was like, it was just our life. But now I'm like, gosh, he really worked hard. He really went out there every day and sacrificed so much for our family, for those time. We didn't know if the NFL was going to be not for long, a year or 2 or 3, or if it ended up to be a 10-year career. But just seeing him work so hard, put us first and all of that, and now our kids are big, they're learning themselves and doing their own thing. Like, they inspire me every day.
You're getting close to empty nesting.
I know, we talk about it often.
I know, it seems
I'm
like
straddling the fence. Happy, sad. But
I love this quote you said. It says, I want to quote my husband. The definition of a real man is a guy who takes care of his family.
Definitely.
And I think that's dead on. And I loved what Chris was saying a while ago about all of the kids and the stats. I mean, a lot of people don't always like what we say, but it's truth. And sometimes you've got to appreciate truth. And I think that is where I became a big Mioshi fan. We've talked about things that we don't agree on always politically, and I'll ask her, well, why don't you like that? And she'll tell me, and I'll go, well, that's not really how insurance really works. That's how the self-insured football insurance works. You know, they draft these players, they create this great big revenue out there to get them in, and then when they're done, they're put out to pasture like ranchers do cows. And I do think that, to me, is very similar to the way veterans are done. And I really feel like that's something that is a social conscious. You know, one of the things you brought up, and I know because I read this and I loved what Chris said, because he answered this interviewer just dead on. But he was like, I'd like to play ball with Ray Lewis before he retires. Not before I retire, because I was already done. He went back after he was already done because he wanted to play ball with Ray Lewis. And I know Ray had a lot of stuff going on, you know. And an interviewer asked Chris, you know what he's done, and you've seen the video, and he goes, hey, I don't believe any, and you can change it if you didn't say this is what I read, any man should hit a woman. But we all have to be forgiving people. We have to be that friend. We have to be that light. And I read that, and I was like, that's what makes you the family man you are. And you ended up playing with him, ended up winning Super Bowl, and you prayed about it. And you're not a rah-rah man, according to Mioshi. But some of the guys were having a tough time, and you stood up and you said, guys, we got to do this. I prayed to get here, and I know I'm here because of God. And I read that, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to interview these people? Because everybody knows I'm a crier. And I'm like, But when I think about
That
what
hits the
that
tissue.
does to the young men that you're influencing, and y'all just did a 7-on-7 in the heat, 110. What was the heat index? 120?
130 in College
Oh
Station.
my gosh.
130 in College Station.
Oh, and you did go to Blend first.
I did go Blend.
Yes, you just skipped right by Aggieland. You just skipped right by
Actually, we went
Aggieland.
by there this weekend, took pictures and stuff. I like going back to where everything started,
Yeah.
just to see the growth, and even just hearing you just say off the years and stuff. It's like we've been through a lot, man. And
Yeah.
I tell people we stay in our own lane because of the simple fact that, I mean, Sarah Jakes quoted this a couple weeks ago. We have a different system now. Our system don't fit with everybody's system, but at the same time, we normal people. I mean, we put our pants and shirts on like everybody else, and sometimes we get that they think they're more than that. I think it's just bad vibe, but we're just on a different system because our system that works with our family, that's all what we're about right now. It's just family system.
Yep.
And a
That's
system
what
that
my dad taught me, and I think that that's
you
the
really
way to.
change it.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at your parents, you know, I changed up when I started interviewing people a while back. I wanted to know who their first advisors were, your first boss, and if they didn't tell me their parents, I knew there was a broken home, or they just didn't listen. And I knew I could take care of the person that came from a broken home, but I can't take care of somebody that doesn't listen. And there's not something you cannot learn from your parents. You can either learn what to do or what not to do. And I think that is the very valid lesson there, because when I was talking about God just blessing us, I was thinking about that similar parallel with you, Chris, and also with you, Mioshi, because, you know, like, y'all met when y'all were young. You didn't even start dating till later.
After
like
high school.
Yeah. And God just brought you together because he saw you were stronger together than apart. And you've proven that. And I can just imagine the prayers that you were saying when you kind of just let go of football and had just gone through that very huge trauma. I read where Mioshi texted you that there was a family emergency and you needed to call right away. And I think that's when I really, way back when, started to really research y'all and see what you did, because somebody mentioned to me that you had set up this foundation for your sister. And beautiful, beautiful woman.
Yes.
Beautiful woman. And I started reading quotes that Chris had said, and that's when I decided I wanted to really interview you guys, because I knew that people needed to hear that story, because it's a common thread in some of these women that think that they deserve that. You know, I have women all the time ask me how I broke the glass ceiling, and for the longest time I didn't know what they were talking about, because men have supported me in my business. Some of my biggest fans are men.
Right.
And I always say mean girls didn't come out for no reason, y'all. Mean girls really exist. But there's a lot of these girls that just have such low self-esteem that they will let people just totally take advantage of them. And that's what happened to your sister. She was in a bad relationship, and you tell the story better than me, but I mean, kind of tell us what happened in 2011. You started down that road earlier.
Well, it was a guy that shouldn't have been with my sister from the get go. But you know, as a brother and growing up, you know, my 5 friends, and I'm glad you hit that number, because I always tell I have 5 friends, and it's from high school 5 friends. We pretty much raised each other throughout high school, and then as we got older. And one thing we just didn't put up with men hitting women. And I always came from a background where I wanted my mom, my sister, sisters, and then as I got older, my daughter to be raised right by a man. And I'm like, as a man myself, how do I respect? I can't have a man respect me if I'm putting my hands on somebody else's daughter.
Yeah.
So that's why I never would even attempt to do that. And as my sister, you know, I seen things out throughout my sister life with the guy right before training camp. my older sister, she called and she said that, he been putting his hands on her, whatever case may be, and he pulled a knife on my older sister. And right then and there, I said, told myself, I said, I need to do something. And then I called the dude, and it was like in June. I think I left around July, in the middle of July normally. And I talked to the dude, and I said, hey, look, I know what's going on. I heard what's going on. Y'all need to go y'all separate ways, go your separate ways. But I just can't hear you putting your hands on my sister anymore. I said, or it's going to be between me and you. Oh, nothing, Chris is not nothing like that. Woo, just trying to, I guess, brush it off. So when I left, and normally my mom would tell me, but she didn't even tell me, I guess, because my sister was still trying to keep my mom out of the situation. And we had two nieces. Well, I had a niece, and then the youngest niece was by the gentleman. And so I left in July, and it was around, August?
December.
Yeah, it was that whole season. So I left training camp, and then we went through the season. And then December the 5th, I was in a meeting, and normally we have our phones, and our coach would be getting on our butt because we don't both be texting and stuff and paying attention to the film.
Sounds familiar.
So they started making us put it in our little cubby. So I got out of somehow. Something just said, go tell me I got your restroom. So I'm like, Coach, I got your restroom. I go Chris. So I went out the room, got my phone, and all I seen, he shot her. And I looked, but it came from my mom. And I'm like, man, new technologies. She don't know what she talking about. She might hit something. I'm like, oh well. So I walked on through, going around. So from here to like turn the corner, it was a desk, and there's always a guy that received calls when like family members or whoever called, fans, whatever. So he said, your wife called, and normally they don't get through because they go from the front to the back. So it's like screening. Or like your wife said, call her. So I picked up the phone and I called. He said, your mom is shot. Your mom just got shot. Gino just shot your mom and shot your sister. So right then and now I went bananas. So I'm like, oh shit. So I went to calling my mom. She couldn't pick up the phone. And I called her boyfriend, and he picked up the phone, and he said that Gino just shot your mom and shot your sister, but they just took him to the hospital. So I went up at the time, was Hugh Jackson was my head coach. So I went upstairs crying at that point in time. I said, here, I got to go to the airport. My mom and sister just got shot. So at that time, I'm already just furious.
Yes. That flight must have been horrible.
So once they got me a limo, and I got from Oakland to San Francisco, steady trying to call my mom, trying to call my sister, call her boyfriend. At that time, they got me a flight. I think it was like at 3, so it was a 3-hour flight. So I'm waiting on the board the plane, and I called my mom boyfriend. I said, and he finally picked up. He said, your mama is coming out of surgery. She fine. And he said, but.
That's tough. So we created a foundation. Y'all did.
We did.
And what is it called, Mioshi?
The Showtime 37 Foundation.
Yeah, we need to know how to help when we can. So when we get done with this podcast, I want to get the places that if people want to make donations and want to help, that y'all can let us know that. Because I think that is, are you still active in the foundation? Do you have ones you prefer over the other? I mean, obviously we want to be able to try to help those people.
Yes.
That's tough.
There's one and only one domestic violence shelter in the southern sector of Dallas. Okay. The northern sector has quite a few, 2 or 3. I know we've gone to different boards and different fundraisers for them, but the one in South Dallas is called Women Call Moses.
Okay.
And the owner is Deborah Bowles. And I mean, Women Call Moses because her, most definitely, but and the other women that work for her, they're, in Deborah's words, in the trenches.
I just say, she said they go in the trenches. They go and get the women. They
go to the homes, they go, and it's dangerous for them a lot of times. Yes. So she'll call us in the middle of the night, like, hey, can you, now I'm glad there's Cash Apps and Venmos. And
Yes.
But like one night she was like, I just went and rescued this family. They had to leave with what they have on their back, and I have to get them to a hotel and get them some things. And Chris got up and bought like $500 worth of Walmart cards, Visa gift cards, and took them to her.
That's
and was
awesome.
just like, whatever they need, like just get them to safety,
That's
the
why you
mom and
both
the
are
kids.
called philanthropists. It's just such a big deal. Well, the reason
I love that one.
the reason I wanted that story told, we have a lot of women that follow me, and I hear from a lot of them that the reason they're in the insurance business is they're trying to break free of some of these abusive relationships because they can't make enough money to support the family, and their husbands are threatening them that if you do this, I'll take my kid back. And that's really why I wanted y'all, because I know it's a hard story to tell, and Chris, I just appreciate your bravery for that. But I will tell you, I had a black woman work for me, and this is such a great story. She's now remarried. She's she's paralegal now. She got her education, but she was married to this heathen called Anthony that was a crack dealer, and he would threaten her every which way of her life. And I would take her to one place to meet these homeless shelters people, so they would pick her up. Finally found a really good organization in Fort Worth that she got part of, and they built her self-esteem. And I lost her as an employee, which broke my heart. She was amazing, but she found herself. But I think so many times, because he came in waving a gun at me, walked right in a bank building, Fort Worth, Texas, right there at Hewlin and 20, over to the bank building, walked right in with a gun, came into our office, looked me square in the eyes, and I have no fear. My dad and I, we just have that. And after it all happened, Dan's like, were you scared? And I go, well, not at the time. I wanted to beat him.
Right.
Because I knew what he was doing to her. But yeah, now I am. Because, I'm a mama too. And that guy could have taken me out. But he came in there and threatened me with all this stuff. And I looked right at him and I said, God's watching you. So if I die today, I know where I'm going.
Right.
But you are not a good person. You are beating the daylights out of her. And she would come in and we would see it, and she would try to cover it up. And she walked in one day with a gold tooth. This is when I really lost my temper. And I said, I'm sure he knocked your tooth out. Is the gold to buy you? Because I'd just rather you not have the gold in there.
Right.
I'd rather you remind yourself every day what that man did to you. Because every time I see that gold tooth,
That's what
I'm reminded of the fear that you live in every day. And you're so smart. But she had never had anybody tell her how smart she was. She didn't know how beautiful she was. And she's just the most amazing mama now, and she's got a great life, but she's one of the few, right?
Right.
So many of these women think they deserve this. And it just gets on my last nerve. So I love that y'all did what you did. So now I have to ask a bad question. Chris, what has been your biggest failure? Because a lot of people don't think when you're a success that you've had any failures.
Right.
And I always say you got to have failures to even know success. So what is your biggest failure?
Well, one of my quotes are, to be successful, you got to be uncomfortable. Successful, you don't see successful people being comfortable.
Love it.
But my failure came in 1999 when I failed the EVAP, which is going to the military.
Oh.
Me and my best friend out of high school was going to the Navy, and we went to Shreveport, Louisiana, and I wasn't ever a good tester anyway. People don't know. I mean, I had a lot of teachers through high school that got me through high school. I had ADD in high school, couldn't learn, never knew how to study for a test. And I knew going down there that it was a possibility that I probably would fail, but I just needed something to get out of Longview.
Right.
So we both went. He passed, and he just retired
Oh my gosh,
a month
how
ago.
cool. Thank you for that service.
Yeah, and then
That's awesome.
I went to the league and played 10 years, so we both had successful careers. But I tell my
And
kids,
you're still friends.
and still friends to this
That's
day.
awesome.
And I tell my kids to this day that is the only thing that I'm happy that I did fail, because you see a different turn in my life compared to what it could have been. But other than that, that was the only one.
Nice. I love that. What was your biggest failure?
Oh, wow. Probably too many to name.
Nuh-uh.
Too many to name. I'm a big...
We get that from women a lot, Mandy. We do. I'm straightening that out, y'all, by the way. That's going to change.
Good.
Yes. You probably don't have any, but let's just go to one.
Turned out to be a blessing, but definitely it was a big mistake at the time, getting pregnant my freshman year in college. And just the moment of I failed. I messed up my life. You know, I can't take care of a kid. His dad was in college, and we were both kids, 19 years old. And I was just like, this is not going to be good. This is not going to turn out good. And seeing my parents, his grandmother that helped raise him, all disappointed in us. Like, y'all are just starting life, and what are y'all going to do? And now look back 21 years, Brand's 21, and I'm just like, oh, thank God. Thank God I had that little boy, because he taught me so much about, hey, you got to start over. 8 months old, I packed up and took him to college with me, because someone told me, hey, you can go to Jarvis Christian College, and they have dorms with girls with babies there.
Isn't that, so how cool is that? Jarvis Christian College, y'all, Christian College.
HBCU.
Has a place for you to come. That's what causes so many people to doubt Christians and Christianity. Because they think if you make one wrong move, they're going to judge you. But you have a Christian college being accepting of you, because that's what Jesus wants of us.
Yes.
And, you know, that's what's so great, you know, is that you got that Jesus love, and you got to give that Jesus love to your family. That just inspires me. And when I came up with this idea of #accomplished, I really was like, I want to hear people that want to make me be a better person. And I want to hear stuff where I get out on the edge of my seat and go, I can go do that. You know, Dan always is asking me, how old are you? Did you forget you're going to be 60 next year? You don't need to stay out there with all those young kids and keep up. And I go, but I do. Because they're not hearing that Jesus loves them.
That's true.
So while I may be out there having cocktails with them, playing Texas Hold'em 2 a.m, they know Jesus is in my life. And they know that I am a walking, talking. I always tell everybody, I'm not Paul, I'm Paula. Because God has just taken so many bad things. And I've seen real life miracles. And I know my son's a miracle. I know what a doctor told me, that my chances of having a baby were less than 2%. And I know I carried that baby. There's a lot of things that, you know, you can go, well, maybe I didn't do that. But that one, when Dan was complaining sleeping on his back the other night because he had cornea surgery, and it was for 2 nights, and I'm like, I did that for 45 days to bring you that boy, and I didn't complain once. So we can just move on past that one. So now we get to go to the great stuff. What was your dream? And you've talked a lot about this, but what was your dream, and how do you feel you're accomplished?
Stay tuned for part 2, coming out soon.